Welcome back to your nightmares, my children. This is Mr. Midnight speaking. I welcome you all to my humble abode. So today, we will look at a famous urban legend, a famous ritual known as the elevator game. Let's begin, and always remember, the darkness always follows. I will now leave you with my narrator, so enjoy.
In the depths of the internet, a chilling urban legend looms, waiting to be explored. Welcome to the mysterious and spine-tingling tale of the elevator game. Brace yourselves for a journey into the unknown, where reality and the supernatural collide. Legend has it that the elevator game is a forbidden ritual, a pathway to a parallel dimension. Whispers of its existence have circulated among those who dare to seek the thrill of the unknown, but the true origins remain shrouded in darkness. Picture this: a desolate building standing tall amidst the city's forgotten secrets. Within its walls, a hidden chord, known only to the brave or the foolish, unlocks an otherworldly realm. With each floor and each step, the stakes grow higher, and the line between reality and nightmare blurs. The rules are simple, yet hauntingly specific. You must embark on this chilling journey alone, choosing the right time and the right place. Enter the elevator, pressing the floors in a precise sequence. 4th, 2nd, 6th, 2nd, 10th, and finally the 5th. But beware, for the 5th floor is no ordinary stop. It serves as a gateway to the other side. As the doors slide open onto the mysterious 5th floor, the atmosphere shifts. Strange occurrences become your companions. Shadowy figures lurking in the corners, distorted echoes whispering your name. You are not alone, not anymore. But here's the terrifying catch. Should you dare to complete the ritual, the elevator doors must remain unobstructed when returning. Failure to do so could trap you indefinitely in the parallel dimension, forever separated from the world you know. For those who have taken this terrifying path, the stories vary. Accounts of encounters with the supernatural, twisted versions of reality, and even disappearances that defy explanation. The elevator game tests not only your nerve, but your very existence. But let me warn you, this is no game to be played lightly. It's an alluring dance with the paranormal, where the consequences may be more than you bargained for. Dare you summon the courage to step into that dimly lit elevator and ascend into the unknown. Now, that's enough for the introduction. Join us, me and Mr. Midnight, as we dwell deeper into the urban legend of the elevator game and look at people's experiences with this horrifying ritual. But remember, once you've entered these stories and that elevator, there may be no turning back. The elevator ritual. Some of you may have heard of a satanic ritual called the elevator ritual that went around the internet a few years ago. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a game where you enter an elevator by yourself in a building with at least 10 floors and press the buttons in a certain order. When you reach the final floor, you'll be in an alternative dimension, which is the same as Earth, except there's a large red cross in the sky and you're the only person alive. Obviously, I assume this was just another Reddit urban legend. But since me and my friend John are really into this kind of stuff, we decided to give it a go. There's a hotel just down the road that has over 10 floors. So we psyched each other up and went down there at 1 a.m. back on a cold night in March. Luckily, there was no one around, which made it easier to play the game. But it also made it creepier, so we could scare each other easier, which is something we've always done. And we're still great at it, despite the fact that we always expect it. Once we reached the hotel, we crept through reception and made our way to the elevator, which wasn't hard to find since it was almost in sight from the entrance to the building. Since the elevator ritual states that you have to be alone in the elevator when you perform it, we tossed a coin to decide who would go first. Heads, I went in first. Tails, he went first. Unfortunately, it was heads, so I had to be the first one to test this satanic ritual alone, in an elevator in a gross hotel. I got in, waited for the doors to close, and began the ritual. I got my phone out and looked at the notes I'd made as to how to perform the ritual, as it's pretty complicated. But these are the rules. Enter your chosen building and get into the elevator on the first floor alone. Do not proceed if anyone else is in the elevator with you. Press the button for the fourth floor. When the elevator reaches the fourth floor, do not get out. Instead, remain in the elevator and press the button for the second floor. When you reach the second floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the sixth floor. When you reach the sixth floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the second floor. When you reach the second floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 10th floor. When you reach the 10th floor, remain in the elevator and press the button for the 5th floor. When you reach the 5th floor, a young woman may enter the elevator. Do not look at her. Do not speak to her. She is not what she seems. Press the button for the 1st floor. If the elevator begins ascending to the 10th floor instead of descending to the 1st, you may proceed. If the elevator descends to the 1st floor, exit as soon as the doors open. Do not look back. Do not speak. If you reach the 10th floor, you may either choose to get off the elevator or to stay on it. If you choose to get off, and if the woman entered the elevator on the 5th floor, she will ask you, "Where are you going?" Do not answer her. Do not look at her. You are now in an alternative dimension where you are the only person on earth. I began the ritual. I pressed the buttons in the correct order and began to ascend and descend the floors of the hotel, all the time knowing that nothing would actually happen. I was planning my made-up story that I was going to tell John to scare him after I got out of the elevator, about how the ritual worked and that I was in an alternative dimension. I was laughing to myself at the thought of seeing his terrified face. But then something happened that turned my smile into a face of pale horror, made my blood run cold, and made me start shaking with fear. I reached the 5th floor, and a woman in a white dress entered the elevator. I stood frozen for about 5 minutes before my brain kicked into action, and I remembered that the only way to escape this was to finish the ritual. So I pressed the rest of the buttons. I hit the final button, praying that I would descend to the 1st floor and go back to the normal world rather than ascending to the 10th floor and entering the alternative dimension. But to my horror, as my trembling finger pressed the final button, the elevator began ascending. I almost broke down, but I managed to keep it together because I knew that if I stayed calm, it would be easier for me to escape. I decided that as soon as I reached the 10th floor, I would step out of the elevator, then get straight back in and repeat the ritual, as this is how you return to the real world. The doors opened. I stepped out and was momentarily fixated on the glowing red cross in the sky. Then I turned around to step back into the elevator, but was stopped stone cold in my tracks. The elevator wasn't there. In a blind panic, I began to hyperventilate and collapse to the floor. When I finally got up, I noticed an elevator to my left at the end of the corridor, about 100 meters away. I wasn't prepared to waste any time or explore this dimension, so I just sprinted to the elevator. I repeatedly slammed the button to open the doors, but it felt like it was taking a lifetime. Then I heard something that made me slam the button even faster. Footsteps coming towards me from behind. Luckily, the elevator opened when it sounded like they were right behind my back. So I stepped in and frantically pressed the buttons to undo the ritual. When I reached the first floor, the doors opened and I laughed through relief and happiness when I saw John standing there telling me to be quiet so the receptionist didn't hear us. "What happened? What was it like?" John asked me. I told him that it didn't work and it was just a waste of time, then asked him if he wanted to go grab a burger. To this day, 6 months later, I'm still paranoid that I never left the alternative dimension, and every time something seems just slightly off, it petrifies me. No, hopefully it's just a phase that will pass soon. But there's one thing I could say about my experience with the elevator ritual. It would be this: it isn't just another internet urban legend. This is something else. The elevator ritual really works. I have no explanation for it. Perhaps there's a logical one. But for now, all I can say is do not perform the elevator ritual. I performed the elevator ritual, but I did something wrong. I was really hoping that someone here can help me with this. I know that this sub has some experiences with ritual stories, what with the very popular Midnight Man and Hooded Man ritual stories. I know there is also a very popular elevator ritual story on this sub. I'm not going to post the links, just search for them if you have time. I learned about the elevator ritual from the YouTuber Top 5's Theories about Alyssa Lamb video. After hearing about it, I did a little bit of research. I came across a page dictating how to do the ritual. This intrigued me. I did not believe in the supernatural at all. I was very convinced that everything could be explained by science. But last night, I took a trip into the unexplainable. On Sunday, I finally made up my mind to try this ritual. I knew I couldn't try out that day because it would require about an hour of walking to get to the nearest 10-story building. So I decided to set out the next day. However, complications arose, and I didn't get around to leaving until around 10 p.m. that night. This didn't seem like a problem to me. After all, I didn't believe in the supernatural. The following dictates what happened to me, with rough time estimates. 11:05 p.m. I arrived at the destination, a 15-story hotel, with 4 working elevators. The hotel was a very good reputation. It is known to be a place where celebrities visiting the area constantly stay. The rooms can cost up to $800 a night, and the cooking is famous for being fantastic. I walked into the hotel lobby, admiring the chandelier and bright colored walls. 11:10. After looking around the lobby for a bit, I found the nearest elevator. I remember it being busy, and I had to wait for it to be reached the first floor. When the doors opened, I entered the elevator and took out the scrap of paper on which I had written the instructions. I pushed the 4th floor button. 11:11. The doors opened on the 4th floor. No one was waiting for the elevator. I pushed the 2nd floor button. 11:12 to 11:15. I continued to go to the required floors, from the 2nd floor to the 6th floor, from the 6th floor to the 2nd floor, from the 2nd floor to the 10th floor. No one was waiting for the elevator on any of the floors. Nothing unusual had happened, but for some reason, I was very nervous. My heart was pounding in my chest. 11:16. I reached the 10th floor. I knew that in a couple of seconds I would know if the ritual was real or not. I pushed the button for the 5th floor. 11:17. I reached the 5th floor. The doors opened. I stared at the floor, desperately hoping no one would be waiting for the elevator. But my hopes were quickly crushed. I heard soft footsteps and heard breathing. I stared at the elevator buttons, knowing that looking at her would be dangerous. Shiz. The ritual had said that a young woman might enter the elevator at this point. I pushed the 1st floor button. The elevator began to go up. This meant I was going to cross over. 11:19. The door slid open to the 10th floor. I knew that I could turn back now. I could push the 1st floor button, avoid looking at the woman, and leave. But I couldn't do that. I needed to see. I stepped out of the elevator. A voice echoed from behind me, like I knew it would. "Where are you going, Alex?" The voice was high-pitched, like a little girl. I knew I wasn't supposed to look back. I wasn't supposed to look at her. But I did. I turned around. I will never forget what I saw. She was wearing a black nightgown, ripped and covered in dirt. Her hair was tangled and messy. There was mascara running down her face, like she had been crying. She was not wearing any shoes. Her fingernails and toenails were long and ungroomed. But her face is the reason I couldn't sleep last night. She had dark purple eyes, so purple that it looked like amethysts. Her nose looked broken, like she had been punched in the face. Blood streamed out of it. When I looked at her, she smiled. Her lips were cracked and dry. Her teeth were black and rotted, and I could see flecks of red on them. I stared at her for maybe 30 seconds. Then she laughed a horrible, high-pitched laugh. The elevator door slammed shut faster than it should here. 11:21. I was crying. My hands were shaking, and I felt very, very tired. I hadn't even looked around me yet. Where was I? I remembered the description of the other world. Where I was matched the description. All of the lights were off. Looking out the windows, I could see the red cross that was described. But it wasn't blood red. No, it wasn't naturally red colored. It was a burning wooden cross. There was one outside every window, and if I looked close enough, I could see people. There were people on the crosses, thrashing and screaming, dying. I turned around. I wanted to leave. I ran back towards the elevator. I pushed the door button frantically. The doors opened. I wished they hadn't. It was full of corpses. There was enough room for me to walk to the panel and get out of here. But the stench was awful. These must have been people from the crosses outside. The bodies were charred and burned. All of them had nail marks from crucifixion on their hands. I followed the instructions on my piece of paper. I pushed the buttons in the same order as I had before, except this time when the doors opened. On each floor, the floors weren't empty. The girl was there. On the 4th floor, she was standing down the hallway. I could barely see her. On the 2nd floor, she was a bit closer. On the 6th floor, I could see her clearly. Back on the 2nd floor, she was actively walking towards me. Oh God, the stench was awful. On the 10th floor, she was running towards me. On the 5th, she was just feet away. I pushed the button for the 1st floor, and just like the ritual said, it again began to ascend to the 10th floor. I pushed the 2nd floor button to cancel the ascension, and the elevator began to descend. The doors opened on the 1st floor. The lobby was completely empty. I was alone with the corpses in the elevator. I knew the ritual said not to exit if anything seemed off, but I needed to get out. That effing woman was going to come back. I ran home. I threw open my door and ran upstairs. It was midnight at this point. I turned on all the lights, locked all of the doors, and huddled in the middle of my living room floor with all of the curtains drawn. I stayed there all night. Now here's my problem, no sleep. The ritual says that if you look at the woman or talk to her, she may decide to keep you for herself. Well, I looked at her, and I've seen what happens when she takes people. They end up corpses in an elevator. A tool to scare away potential travelers to the other world. It is lights out, but my hands are still shaking. I am sweating like crazy. Someone has been banging on my window for the last 3 hours. I can hear her laughing. Why don't my neighbors hear her? Why don't they see her? Why doesn't someone do something? Please help, no sleep. I am ready to take the easy way out. I've had a pistol in my lap since I got home. You guys know the supernatural. Please help make the banging stop. Please help her effing laughter. Make it stop. Beware the 7th floor of the elevator ritual. So this is pretty different because I've never read or heard anything about this happening in anyone's elevator ritual experience. The 7th floor. For any of you who aren't aware of the elevator ritual, you basically have to go into an elevator that has a minimum of 10 floors and visit floors 4, 2, 6, 2, 10, 5. Then on the 5th floor, some scary ghost lady is supposed to walk into the elevator and you're to click the 1st floor and the elevator will go to the floor 10. While in the elevator, you're not to look at or acknowledge the lady or she might take your soul for her own. Well, last night I did the elevator ritual for the first time, but instead of landing on the 5th floor, I ended up on the 7th. When it comes to the paranormal and the spirit world, I'm a believer because I grew up in a strong Christian household. But I was like, you know what? I'll just see if this works. Lol. I'm so stupid. I live in an apartment, so I was always tempted by the elevator ritual. I'm pretty scared right now because there's something scratching at my window. Mind you that I live on the 11th floor. At around 2:50 a.m., I walked into my apartment building's rectangular elevator, which was rather dirty due to people spitting on the walls and littering in the corners. My building managers aren't the cleanly type, because they usually look and smell like they haven't showered for days at a time, and their building reflects their lifestyle. The elevator landed on the 1st floor and I inspected the floor like the instructions told me to take note on details of the 1st floor. My building is currently upgrading our bright orange red funky wall tiles that would have been desirable in the 70s but outdated in 2017 to fake stone tiles that gave the impression of classy, but one glance inside the elevator would kill that impression. The wall was halfway down with half the wall white with drywall and the other fully tiled. The floor was completely done with charcoal colored stone tiles. The lobby looked a mess, but that's what I call home. Me being the lazy person that I am, I didn't want to get out of the elevator and wait for another get out and get back in for no reason and waste my time. Decided that I'll stay in the elevator. I had a little rush of adrenaline and a bit of skepticism, but I sent up a short prayer for protection should anything go wrong. After my prayer, I clicked the 4th floor and the elevator obeyed. I did the sequence as detailed exactly in the ritual instructions because I know second hand how easily it is to have supernatural entities attached to you. I didn't want anything following me home, and I made sure I would do everything possible to avoid just that. I wasn't expecting anything to go as planned, But as I got to the 10th floor, I began to think, holy shiz, this ritual might actually work. There was a little voice in the back of my mind that was screaming for me to just click the 11th floor and go home. But I already made it so far, so I wasn't turning back, not now. I clicked the 5th floor, and the elevator began going down, and a burst of adrenaline coursed through my veins, and I eagerly watched the number count down 9, 8, and the elevator suddenly stopped at 7. I was thinking, what the F? But then I told myself that it was probably another tenant trying to use the elevator. The metal doors of the elevator took a little longer than usual to open, and when they did, I instantly regretted getting in that damn elevator. I talked to everyone in the elevator, so I was preparing to talk to the person that walked in, but when I saw the wall opposite of the elevator, I knew something was amiss. And I quickly averted my eyes because you're not supposed to look at anyone you encounter in the elevator ritual. The wall color opposite of the elevator in my building is white with a green lining on the wall. The tiles were a beige color, but on this floor everything was off. The walls were a dingy white, and the usual white light of the hallway was dimmed, like someone had painted the bulb with a brownish black. The green of the floor lining of the wall was very dark, almost black, and the floor was a brown. I stared straight at the ground to avoid looking at whoever it was coming into the elevator. From the corner of my eye, I saw a girl that was probably around 12 walk into the elevator and stood in the middle of the elevator staring at me. Her torn dress was more of a nightgown and looked like it was once white, but now was stained almost black at the bottom and different hues of brown, like dried blood and mud and dirt. Before she even walked into the elevator, I smelt her, but as she stood beside me, the stench of body odor, urine and feces clogged my nostrils, and the stench of decay that emitted from her made me want to puke. I had half a mind to run out of the elevator and get as far away from the scary bee as fast as my legs could carry me. That little voice in my head gave me pause, and despite every feeling in my body telling me to run, I stayed where I was in an attempt to stop this crazy idea. I clicked the 5th floor in the hopes that I'd get off and make a sprint to the staircase. To my horror, the elevator's doors closed, locking me in there with her, and it wasn't moving. I bit my tongue to keep me from screaming for help, and my heart was pounding so loud in my chest that I swear the girl could hear it. She wouldn't stop staring at me, but I had no intention of telling the bee to take a picture because it'll last longer. I usually get people staring at me because of my exotic eye and skin color mix, and generally don't have a problem with it unless they stare too long, but this was beyond crazy and scary. The elevator locked me in there for probably less than a minute, but oh god, it was an eternity. I never felt a second go by so slow. The door opened again on the 7th floor, and it was all worse. The walls were almost black, and the light was barely visible. I had always planned on staying in the elevator should I encounter this scary girl, but now I know why everyone left the elevator on the 10th floor. She was bloody scary. I was about to bolt down the hallway with the intention that I'd find a way to get back home. Anywhere was better than being in the elevator. Right when I was about to take off, the girl in the elevator was like, "Where are you going?" I stopped dead in tracks and was about to turn to face her until I remembered that I wasn't supposed to look at her or acknowledge her. The voice didn't reach my ears but was said into my mind, and I almost shrieked. I took the long hall which was to my left after exiting the elevator. The hallway seemed longer, but all I wanted was to reach the damn stairwell door so I could climb some flights of stairs and go home. I walked fast, and the further I got from the elevator, the more fuzzy my mind became. It seemed as if the stairwell door wasn't getting any closer. It became darker the further I got, and my mind just kept saying, "Run and don't stop." My body was getting heavy, and I needed to support myself on a wall. Everywhere began to get dark around me, and I began to forget that I was in a hallway. I could only see the lights in front of the elevator and the exit sign in front of the stairwell door that was never getting closer. Upon hearing a sound, whenever the hell it came from, made that little voice in me to suddenly tell me to stop running. I looked around, and I felt scared like I was a kid again, lost in the mall. The voice was loud in my head, screaming for me to run back to the elevators, and the skin on my back crawled in ways it never did before. I somehow gained the strength to put my weary legs into motion to run back towards the elevators, but for some reason I now noticed that there was like a thick darkness around me. I felt like I was in a bubble of light that was probably like a meter around me, and beyond that was a darkness that I could reach out and touch. The hair on the back of my head and neck stood up, and I felt like I was being watched heavily. My disoriented mind kept telling me to run and don't look back. But being the dumbass that I was, I did anyways. I looked behind me and saw a shadow just beyond my vision in the darkness. My heart skipped so many beats, it's a wonder I'm still alive. I picked up my speed and didn't care that the walls felt like they were flaking when my fingers ran over its surface. I made it to the elevators, and I was freaking out. I clicked the elevator button furiously, even though I knew that it wouldn't make the elevator come any faster. I heard more sounds, and the fear that I felt was indescribable. The smell of decay filled my nose again, and I was scared that the little girl would come back and try to take me. I heard a scratch to my left, and I whirled around to see the outline of a disfigured man in the shadows. My heart raced as I panicked. I had opened my mouth to scream, but that voice in my head shook me up. I don't know what the hell was going on, but I had the feeling that if I did scream or try and run now, that I would definitely die. The thing began running towards me, and I flinched, keeping in my scream. Then, as he approached the light around me, he disappeared. Most people would have been happy that he disappeared, but oh my god, it scared the shiz out of me even more. How am I supposed to fight something I cannot see? Why was this damn elevator taking so long? I turned back to face the elevator button, and oh my bloody god, it was there in front of my face. It wasn't a man. I don't even know what the heck this was, but it had like grey leathery skin that was stretched over skinny bones. This thing looked like something straight out of an Alien versus whatever movie, but the head was similar to that of a human's. But it had only skin where eyes should have been, and had two slits for nostrils. Its jaw protruded from its skull and was open to expose 4 large canine teeth, and the rest in between were like little dagger blades. It had no tongue, and saliva with the consistency of goo ran down the sides of its chin. I swear to God, I didn't care what the F would have happened to me. I almost screamed, but in that second, the thing lunged a bite at me, and I stepped back, pushing my hands out to keep it away. Its skin felt so cold and nasty, like I'm not even sure how to describe it. My nose missed the bite by a few centimeters. I freaked out and said, "Oh my god," and I somehow began to feel a bit calm. Black began to fuzz the corners of my vision, and I felt like I was going to pass out, but all I could think of was, "Don't run, don't scream." I began chanting the words, "Don't run, don't scream," in my mind, and surprisingly, it began to help. It gave me something other than the creature and my horrible surroundings. I closed my eyes, praying that it'll just go away. Its breath was so hot on my cheek that I felt, and it left a red splash. That's now fading, where its exhale touched my skin. The sound of the elevator I came up in opened, and I opened my eyes to see the thing. No, the girl wasn't there. I quickly ran into the elevator, pressing 1 and the close button like a maniac. The door took forever to close, and I couldn't have been happier when it did. I landed at one and took a serious look around to make sure I was in the land of the living. Nothing was amiss, but I still decided to get out the elevator and wait for the next. I couldn't stop freaking out, even after I got into the next elevator. Tears and snot were running down my face. I didn't care if anyone saw. What I've been through tonight is effed up. So many levels that I never want to take elevators again. F that, I'll take the stairs. After I got home, I googled the seventh floor of the ritual, but couldn't find anything. Decided to hop on Reddit to see if anyone knows anything about it. Beware the elevator ritual, especially the seventh floor.
Well, my children, I thank you all for listening. I hope these scary stories about the elevator ritual frightened you and scared you away from elevators, because they are enclosed spaces from hell. I'll see you again very soon. So until then, love the darkness as it always follows.